welcome to Find Your Way Home. I'm excited to start this show because I get to talk about a fantastic book written by my friend and colleague, Christine Watkins. It is about this miraculous medal, Pendant of Power. Actually, the title of the book is The Miraculous Medal, the Pendant of Power. And I just want to say, and I'm not letting the other Christine talk yet because I want to say how powerful I love this book. So I love this book because it is the most comprehensive and exciting book on the miraculous medal out there. So I know, reading from the comments, a lot of you that watch this you love the Lord, you love your scapulars, you've learned about the miraculous medal. But I will tell you, I've known about this wonderful medal for many, many years. And even reading some of these stories, I remember saying to Christine on the side is, how did you find all of these stories? I quickly counted over 75 stories, and they are some of the most powerful stories of conversion and protection. And well, I can get to that with Christine in a little bit. But the stories are ones that you are going to want to read. They are short, some are long, they are powerful, and they may help you save that person in your life who you believe is lost to come to know and love the Lord. Christine, fantastic job. What caused you to write this?
I couldn't believe when I started learning about the Miraculous Medal that there was this hidden, dormant giant in the Catholic Church that needed to be rediscovered and revived. The stories and its origin story with Catherine Labouré were so incredible, so exciting that I truly believe that every Catholic needs a miraculous medal, needs to know about it, and needs to share it, because this small medal is huge. This is the biggest, smallest thing I've ever encountered. And in this show, we're going to share some of the stories in the book because there are so many. But truly, I had so much hope for the world. I had so much hope for families and the ways that Mary wants to give us graces. Hi, quick announcement. 3 days only before Christmas, 20% off sale for the book, The Miraculous Medal, Pendant of Power. So for those who need discounts, love discounts, want discounts, 3 days only in time for Christmas, December 9th, 10th, 11th. Amazing priests were so kind to praise the book. Father Chris Aylar, Father Dan Rehill, Bishop Joseph Coffey, Father Jose de Sousa. They said respectively that the book was fascinating, riveting, a must-read, excellent, and a masterpiece. 20% off is the price you'll see on Amazon. Normally the price is $19.95, but you'll see it listed as just $15.95 for 3 days. God bless you. St. Catherine Labouré, pray for us. Should I just start with the origin story of how it all came about?
Yeah, I think that's important.
So the person in question is a novice named Catherine Labouré, who was a very holy girl. And when she was 18, she was looking into becoming a sister. She had absolutely no support, in fact, contrary support from her father. But she persevered. Her mother died when she was 9. Life was not easy. She was running a whole farmhouse when she was very, very young. So she was highly disciplined, highly prayerful, highly charitable, and she had a dream. And in the dream, she was at a mass. There was a man behind the altar who had a long nose, round at the end, a white mustache, a skull cap, and brilliant eyes. And she was a little bit scared of him because he was beckoning her toward him. So she left the chapel in the dream to go take care of a sick person. And he showed up next to her again and said, "It's good to take care of the sick. You're running from me now, but soon you will want to come to me. And there's a great mission for you." And the dream ended. So that was an inkling that she had a very, very special mission. She ends up as a novice, as a sister of charity, and this is so fantastic. She on the eve of the feast day of St. Vincent de Paul, was given, along with the other novices, by their superior, a tiny piece of cloth of St. Vincent's surplice. And she tore the cloth in two and swallowed one. And in this act of faith, she truly believed that St. Vincent was going to intercede in heaven and make it so that she would see the Virgin Mary. So those of you listening at home, I don't...
It's an act of faith.
It's an act of faith. It's a unique one. So I do not recommend that you take relics and swallow them and say, I'm going to see the Virgin Mary. But what I love about this is there's something supernatural here, and that her expectation must have been supernatural. She must have had more than an expectation. If I say right now, Christine Bacon, I am going to swallow my relic of Padre Pio, and I will see the Virgin Mary tonight because I have faith. I'm not sure what you would say to me, but that's another show.
This is another show. But if you do eat relics and something good happens, please look us up. We'd love to hear about it.
We'd love to hear from you. And so that night, an angel who looks like a little 4 or 5-year-old boy appears to her, and he pushes his hand toward the door, leading her outside her bed into the chapel. The candle lights are on. His hand goes toward the door, but the door opens without him touching it. So she knew she was having a supernatural experience simply in that. And he guides her into the chapel, where Our Lady walks in and sits down on a chair that is still around today. And so St. Catherine...
Don't eat that one either.
Do not eat the entire chair. Please do not try that at home. And she found herself suddenly kneeling with her hands on Our Lady's leg and staring up into her eyes. And she said it was the most beautiful moment of her entire life. That was the beginning. That was in 1830. 4 months later, she says, I had this strong feeling I knew Mary would appear again. She does. This time, this was the apparition in which Mary asked for the Miraculous Medal. And she appeared with a globe in her hands, rings on her fingers with gems in those rings, and from the gems, streams of light flowed onto a globe before her, and basically lighting up the globe, especially France. She saw on the globe below there was the name France on part of it. And she said basically that all of the places on the globe lit up from the rays extending from her gems were the places where people were asking for her graces. And the places that were dark were the places where no one was asking for her graces. So she was basically saying, ask for graces. And then a medal appeared. She showed herself in the form of a medal, and around her appeared the words, O Mary conceived without sin, pray for us who have recourse to thee. Then the medal turned around to show the opposite side, which is very famous today, with a cross and an M below it, and the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary, and 12 stars around the rim of the medal. And she said, have a medal cast in this image. And she said things that are very specific about the medal that I want to share with you, because these are things that we have to know today. Have a medal struck after this model. All who wear it will receive great graces. They should wear it around their neck. The graces will be abundant for those who wear it with confidence. So basically, she was good to her word, because Christine Bacon and I are going to share with you some of these stories which show that these graces are not your normal everyday, hey, I felt a little better because I was wearing the Miraculous Medal. No, these are graces like those in the Gospels, where people are instantly healed of cancer, or the dying rise, or the hard-hearted atheist converts, or the person destined to be raped or killed in a car crash is suddenly completely okay. These are not your everyday miracles. And not only that, the book starts off with the most famous, most extraordinary, detailed stories. We have Alphonse Ratisbonne is very well known. He was a Jewish agnostic member of the Rothschild family who was very rabidly anti-Catholic. And through an appearance of the Virgin Mary and the Miraculous Medal, he was a puddle of tears in sobs, a man completely and instantaneously, overwhelmingly in love with our Blessed Mother, ready to spend the rest of his life serving her.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Christine, you said, okay, let's go with the miraculous. What you just said is enough. But for instance, when he went into this church, there was construction going on, so he could only go on one side. When he was praying and he opened his eyes and they found him, he was on another side of the church when this miracle had taken place. And they asked him how he got there. And he's like, I don't know. And so it's even in the way that the miracles are being presented. It's like our mother allows no opportunity to explain some of these things rationally. It just can't be done. And that, well, I guess we shouldn't say that whole story. But let me tell you this, Christine, and I know it's always awkward for those of you watching. Christine does an amazing job, and we're not doing anything here to glorify her or whatever. But I will say that I've seen videos on that story. I've heard audio stuff when I go running. I listen to it. I've read books on it. And there were details in the story in this book that we're talking about today, The Miraculous Medal, Pendant of Power, that just sucked me in as if I was reading it for the first time. So kudos to you, Christine. I don't know how you did your research, but excellent stuff. It just moved me again as if it was the first time I was reading it, and it wasn't the first time I was reading it. The details I got were amazing. What I also didn't realize, Christine, is with St. Catherine of Labouré, and this is how, God operates too. This medal was actually being disseminated and no one knew who St. Catherine was yet. And it wasn't until after she died that the other sisters in the convent found out, because they knew about the medal, but they didn't even realize that one of their sisters was the one.
Yeah, so she was persecuted from the beginning. Mary gives her this request to have the medal made. She goes to the spiritual director Mary chose for her, Father Jean-Marie Aladel, and he even goes as far to call her a wicked wasp, and he doesn't believe in her whatsoever and sends her away. Imagine the burden on her. Mary told her these incredible words about the medal before it was ever cast. St. Labouré repeated this later on. She said, "Oh, how wonderful it will be to hear Mary is Queen of the universe. It will be a time of peace, joy, and good fortune that will last long. She will be carried as a banner, and she will make a tour of the world." So Catherine Labouré has this on her shoulder, that the Miraculous Medal is part, and St. Maximilian Kolbe believed this, of ushering Mary's triumph into the world. And her spiritual director says, "You wicked wasp." And so for many, many years, she could not persuade him at all to do anything about it. He thought she was lying. So she said, "I will tell you what Mary told me, as long as I can be unknown, as long as no one will ever know who I am." And that was not hard for Father Aladel to do, because he didn't believe her anyway. It's not a problem to keep that
Not
secret.
telling anybody about you.
But what was wonderful is that something sparked him to think differently when an exasperated St. Catherine Labouré, after years of trying to convince him, and there are witnesses that say that she would actually tremble going to the confessional to see him. She would literally shake. And that's the pressure that was inside of her. She had to convince him. He wasn't listening, yet she had to go forward. So one time she said, and it was true, of course, "The Blessed Mother is angry. She knows that you would never disappoint her." And there was a marble stone silence behind the confessional when she said that. Something got to him with those words, and he went to see the Archbishop de Quillen, and he was sold when Father Aladel described exactly what the medal looked like in the apparition. According to Catherine Labouré, he said, have it cast. And then it was disseminated throughout the world after that. And the minute the Archbishop was happy, Father Aladel was happy. And he began to be basically one of its greatest supporters of all time, and wrote several books on the subject. And that's how I found some of the ancient stories were ones that he had written down. And they're wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And they need to be resurrected. They're so wonderful. And so, St. Catherine Labouré, it went as high as the Pope. Pope Gregory was astonished that for 46 years, for the remainder of Catherine's life, she didn't tell a soul. One of the stories that I really want to go into as well, I know I touched a little bit upon Ratisbone's story, but there are two modern stories, men of the cloth. One is a priest, another is a deacon. And I'll tell one first, I'll tell one, you tell one, and I'll tell one. Does that sound like a fair plan? So basically, a man in Ireland named Ronan Murphy was walking the streets of Dublin. He was raised in a Catholic family, but he wasn't really much of a believer. He was more into sports and partying. Those were his gods. He's walking along. He's young. He's in his late teens, early 20s, and he's outside a Carmelite church. And once he stands there, a force seizes him and turns his body to look across the street in the window of a jewelry store, where all the jewelry behind the display window disappears and one medal stands out, a gold miraculous medal. He didn't know it was a miraculous medal, but he was Catholic enough to know it was holy because he knew Our Lady was on it. He felt compelled to walk in. When he walks in, all of the other jewelry reappears. He takes the medal, he buys it, and he goes across the street back to the chapel and he has it blessed. He puts it on. And when he puts it on, he is infused with knowledge of the truth of the Catholic faith, the basic truths. And then it goes from there. He had prayed a Hail Mary at age 6 with his mother by his bedside. That's all he knew. He wanted to know the rosary. He wanted to, go to confession. It evolves into the point where he's in seminary. And then the miraculous medal kind of touches his life again because he's not wearing any clerics. As a seminarian, he's actually not allowed to. And he's leaving Mass. And an internal voice, as he's walking away, says, go back to the Adoration Chapel. So he turns around, and as he's walking back, a missionary of charity walks near him and says, are you a priest? And there'd be no way of her knowing because he's not in clerics at all. But she says, would you like to see Mother Teresa? He says, of course. And the missionary of charity says, well, she's visiting Ireland because for a time she was a novice here. And she's visiting where she used to be. So she says, if you get your bishop to give you permission to wear your clerics, you can walk in. So he does. He gets permission. He wears his clerics. He walks in with 800 to 1,000 other people to see Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa is going around to each person and doesn't have time to talk to anyone, shaking their hands. And people form a circle around her, and she begins to speak, and she starts talking about different gospel passages. At this point, Ronan is far back. He can't see her anymore. There's a huge wall of people between him and her, and he thinks, well, it would have been nice to meet a living saint, but I can't see anything, so I guess I'll go. As he starts to walk out, Mother Teresa stops talking. It's silent, and everybody wonders why. So Mother Teresa makes a beeline, crashing through the crowd to come to him. He couldn't see her, and there's no way she could have seen him. She's half the size of everyone else.
She's all 3.5 feet, right?
Yeah. So supernaturally, she knew he was leaving. She rushes to him, hands him a medal, puts it in his hand, and says, I pray that you be a holy priest. Amazing. Your turn.
Okay. So there were so many stories. Christine made me cut it down to 12. So I'm joking. So I have about 5 or 6 stories that I would like to read. But the one that kept sticking with me was also a modern story. And if I'm going to just read it because I want you to understand how some of them are short and powerful. Some of them are longer. And sometimes where you do your reading in that room, that only room where the kids can stay away from you, can lock it and sit for a long time. This is a good book there too, because get some quick stories before the kids stick their fingers underneath the door. All right. So this one, Christine, still amazes me. When I told you which one I wanted to say again, I was amazed again. And it's called Impossibly Alive, and it took place in Germany. And it just says, Willie was driving his parents' car to Nuremberg. Just before arriving in the city, a large, long haul truck pulled in front of him, and he had to hit the brakes. Suddenly, a smaller truck ran into the back of his car and pushed him under the commercial truck. He heard, this is the guy's in the car, right? He heard a crash and then fell unconscious. His parents received a call from the police saying that their son had been in an accident. His car was totally demolished, but he was alive. Willie's mother, Agatha, cried out, "For God's sake, that can't be. If the car is so broken that it can't be driven anymore, then our Willie could not have survived either." So when his father arrived at the scene of the accident, they saw Willie standing by his car without a wound. The car was scrunched together like an accordion. And this is why it got me, because I have seen pictures on the internet of accidents where they've crushed and then gone underneath the vehicle. Impossible. Anyway, this car was scrunched together like an accordion, nothing but a lump of metal. He was shaking through every limb. He pointed to the miraculous medal that was hanging around the rear view mirror, and he said with emotion, "That was my salvation." The trunk of the car, the back seats, everything had been forced into the front of the vehicle. I mean, so this still gets me, because I can put myself in this type of, you're in the front and everything else is in the front. How do you live? He went and untied the metal from the wreckage, and he took it home with him. And none of the bystanders that were there could believe that the driver could have lived and he wasn't dead. It was undeniably a miracle. That one, Christine, is something I think we can understand today in 2023, because we see accidents every day that are less catastrophic than this, and people don't make it. So the hand of God, surely, to get this man out of that, it still stuns me because of this.
Okay, I'm going to one-up you.
Try it.
Okay. So I think this one also gives credence to Mary's desire that this is a medal for our times. Yes, it started in 1830, but she wants a revival. She is desperately asking us for a revival of her medal because of what she does through it. And an example of this is Deacon Christoph Sandoval. I know him personally. He's a deacon in the Archdiocese of San Francisco. And I should have him on the show, actually, and tell the story himself. But to give you the Reader's Digest version, he goes to Mexico with his mother and friend, and he's in their hotel room, and he sees a huge demon over him, trying to strangle him, about 10 feet long, this dark shape. And he says, "Jesus!" And the demon goes away, and he opens the door. It's his mother knocking to come into his hotel room, and she saw the same figure, and she said, "Did you see that, son?" And so he says to her, "We need to go see Our Lady," meaning Our Lady of Guadalupe in the Basilica. So they take a taxi cab from their hotel at the Zocalo where they're staying, which is the central town square in Mexico City. They go to the Basilica, and they go to Mass, and they see Our Lady, and they're so moved. And then they leave, and they get back in the taxi cab, and they are driving or riding home. And Deacon Christoph says, "I've got to go walk the rest of the way." And the reason why he said this is because there was a force trying to move him, a benevolent force trying to move him out of the cab. It wasn't his will to do so. He would have gladly ridden. So this force moves him out of the cab, and he walks toward the hotel and sees this marketplace, and the force moves him into the marketplace, the first floor of the marketplace, down a hall. There's a clock on the wall above him at the end of the hall. To his right, there is a heavyset woman wearing red. Right in front of him, there's jewelry counters everywhere because Mexico is known for its jewelry. And there's a glass case. Behind the glass case are 3 angelic-looking girls in white Mexican dresses, about age 7, very, very young, 1, 2, 3, standing next to each other. And they have this display case in front of them with 3 miraculous medals, beautiful, 2 inches tall. As he approached them, the little girl in the middle said to him in Spanish, "We've been waiting for you.
Wow.
We have a gift for you." Handing Christoph the miraculous medal displayed in the middle, she said, "We have 3 medals. This one is for you. These other 2 are for your brothers and sisters." Christoph put his hand in his pocket looking for money to pay for it, and they said, "No money. She wants you to have it. You will be needing it." So he thanks the girls, and he goes to the Metropolitan Cathedral and goes to Mass. And during that Mass, they have a sprinkling, right? They do on religious objects. And he's holding up the medal. And then it's right then that his eyes are open that was not normal. For some reason, it didn't dawn on him until then. He went, "What was that?" And right after Mass, he runs back down and he goes down the same hall and he goes to the end. He sees the clock. He sees the lady in red. There's no counter and there are no 3 little girls.
Oh.
And he says to the woman in red, he said, I was just here. And she said, "I remember you." And he said, "Well, where's the counter that was here and the 3 girls?" And she said, "There's never been anything there. We keep that space open at all times." So to make a long story short, he is eventually assigned the position of pastoral associate at the Metropolitan Cathedral of St. Mary of the Assumption, the mother church of the Archdiocese in San Francisco, and he becomes the right-hand assistant to the official archdiocesan exorcist, and he becomes a trainer for people in deliverance ministry as well.
Wow.
And what he realized is that these medals, yes, they give graces of conversion. They give graces of healing. They give graces of protection. The blind see. People with cancer are healed. The gospel miracles come to life. And it's spiritual protection against evil, and it literally casts out evil spirits. And so what he does, he said that she helps with the battle in this way, in the intersection between the visible universe and the invisible one around us, where we do the battle. It's almost like doing a bullfight. And the picadors come to weaken the creature of the bull. So the Blessed Mother weakens the demons for Jesus the exorcist to come in and do the work of casting out the demons from the person and helping to heal them. And so he does an investiture prayer, which is at the end of the book as well. So if you choose to have a priest or deacon do the investiture prayer over your medal, you can. Otherwise, you just get a simple blessing. That is also enough to bring incredible graces through the medal. And there is a list of novenas. And these novenas, in conjunction with use of the medal, have brought about so many miracles throughout the ages. They were very common in parishes around the time of World War II, when people were losing their sons to war and given miraculous medals. And this novena was said all the time for the soldiers and for the end of the war. So this is something that can be revived in a major way. And the book also provides resources for how this novena can be brought to a parish. And also, I helped make these miraculous medal evangelization packets that come. These are folded up, and there's a miraculous medal put in there, and they're sent to you because this is an evangelization mission. Yeah. And sometimes we don't know what to say. And if you're shy or you're an introvert and you think, I don't want to go up to strangers and say, here's a medal, you got to wear it. Mary appeared to St. Catherine Labouré in 1830, and she said, many graces will come to those who wear it. You got to wear it. It's really fantastic. You're going to be healed of cancer. Blah, blah, blah. So this flyer and the book help you know what to say, how to say it. And it's easy. If you don't want to say anything and you're real shy, you just say, I have a gift for you. And then the flyer explains everything. Also, you can get the medals in bulk for free. And you just pay for this cord because Mary wants it around the neck. We have volunteers, beautiful people who are putting together these for you so you can get them. You can get 25, you can get hundreds and disseminate them along with the book. Christmas is coming up. The book is a great gift. So are the medals. I don't think we can do enough to make this known.
Easy reading, Christine. I think so many people they don't want just like this religious stuff shown in your face. Like you and I are telling them, some of the stories in here can do the work for you. You don't have to do work or be the evangelist per se. You get out, you share it, and our Lord and our Lady will do the work. So I think, Christine, getting that in their hands, you're right. It's just important. Let God use it however he wills once it's in your hands.
And do you want to be the last one to tell the story?
Well,
do you have one to share?
I've got two, if it's okay. They're short. Bear with me. The first one I'll start is a little bit negative, and then we'll end with a positive one. But it's a reminder that this is not a good luck charm. And it's a story about a priest in Germany who was working the rounds at a hospital where there were terminally ill people. And there he said it worked miracles with everybody he had given it to except for 3 people. And one of them he recalls in the book, Christine, is a woman who was nasty. And he's a big, tall guy, and that would usually be intimidating and made him unafraid. But with this particular woman, he was always at unease. And so at one point, she was like, don't get near me. I don't care about that, God and things like that. So at one point, he had slipped a miraculous medal under her pillow while the doctors were at the foot of her bed. Christine, at that very moment, this woman who was too ill to leave her bed, and again, in my head, I keep thinking a terminally ill woman who leapt out of her bed, said, my bed is burning, my bed is burning. She literally threw 3 men off of her with inhuman strength. And then she fell back into her bed, still cursing, and died. So we do not know who chose heaven and who chose hell, but if we had to make a good decision, someone who is cursing God and this medal and the power of God, at the moment they die, I would not want to be them on their judgment. So this doesn't work unless you have faith.
Yeah, the Miraculous Medal is a sacramental, and one has to be open to the grace. One doesn't necessarily have to know what it is, because there are so many conversions because someone just wore it. And Ratisbon, who we talked about at the very beginning of this show, he didn't really know exactly what it was. But whenever St. Maximilian Kolbe saw that someone was wearing it, he'd say, the battle is already won. So that's pretty amazing. So you had another story?
In my estimation, the most powerful story in the book, it's like bookends with Ratisbon in the beginning. It is someone who I actually call friend at this point, former satanic high wizard Zachary King, who had taken part in over 146 ritual abortions before a miraculous medal conversion story changed his life forever. It is a longer story filled with powerful details that will blow your mind with what God did with this person. And if he can change, or he, through our mother, can change this man, he can change your lost family members. If I have any last suggestion, read this book. It is full of power and miracles. It will change your life.
I know that sounds cliche, but I did get a sense that Mary has Jesus has put his anointing, and Mary has put her prayers into this book, and that it will do great things because it's the power of Mary's intercession and God's grace through the medal. And if you know about it and you believe in it and you disseminate the medal, there's no way that grace won't pour itself into the world in greater abundance. And I'm very, very excited about that. So excited. Go ahead.
Well, who knows? Maybe your story will be the next one, the next miracle.
Oh, I was going to share my story is of how I put it on my 7-year-old every day, and he comes back having it chewed up as a cord in his mouth. That's my story is not very exciting, but I'll tell you something.
Someone reading this or watching this show will have a little bit more miraculous story than that.
Right, but you know what? Here's the thing. Some of the stories are not to be written down because, oh, that's a nice story. But I'll tell you what. My kid, he has behavioral issues at school. He has mild autism. I love him so much. He's so much better. And he was this close to getting kicked out of school until I put the medal on him. And now his behavior has changed and he's staying in school. He's beloved. The kids love him. The teachers can work with him now. And no, that's not the most exciting story on paper, but you know what? That's an incredibly exciting story for me as his mom.
Yeah.
So the power of the medal, it's a grace that Mary wants to give all of us.
Yeah, and Christine, if you think we should, I think we could end with the prayer that Mary gave us to go with the medal.
Absolutely. So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
O Mary,
conceived without sin, pray for us who have recourse to thee. May God bless you, and may you find your way home.